Welcome to Books in the World. I'm so happy today to be able to introduce to you some new people, new writers, new actors. Books in the World usually has an author of a recent book. Today we're going to do a play, and we're going to do a poem play. Books in the World is a production of the Cape Cod Writers Center, and for anyone who doesn't know, this is one of the longest running TV book talk shows in the country. So we're very excited about that, and lately we've been able to bring in a few different kinds of people, booksellers, playwrights, librarians. Judith is actually a board member of the Cape Cod Writers Center with me. Thank you very much.
Thank
Judith
you.
Partelow, who is the author of A Woman's Heart, which is a poem play. That's what I like to call it. It's a poem, a play, a series of poems that has been presented recently around the Cape, along with one of the actors. Rod Owen is here with us, and we're going to have a lot of fun today because we're going to talk about the play. We're going to talk about writing, and we're going to talk about poetry and teaching poetry, but we're also going to have some performances. So we got a lot to do today. First of all, I like to read a comment that two of the viewers had about your play, just to give everyone an idea of what A Woman's Heart is like as a story of the emotional journey that women go through their lives. One person says, an exciting first collection of funny, tender, sexy, nostalgic, gutsy poems that will resonate with your own love and family life, past and present. And if she's on stage in your area, don't miss hearing them read in her own compelling and professional voice. Someone else said, nice, sexy, passionate, womanly poetry. In any case, welcome Judith, welcome Rod.
Thank you.
We're happy to have
thank you
you
so much.
here. Before we really get into this, tell us a little bit about yourselves, Judith, first.
Well, I have been an actress for a very long time, since high school basically, but I became a professional actress in 1979. And so I've done a lot of theater, I've done some film and television and, very voiceover work and all kinds of things like that. I've been writing poetry for a long time too, and probably since junior high. But I did a lot of writing in college, and then as a young mother, I spent a lot of time writing. And so lately, I feel like I've married my two passions, acting
Exciting.
and writing.
Very good, very successfully. Rod, tell us about yourself and why are you here today?
I'm here because of Judith's play.
Okay.
And I met her long ago, 2 years ago, when I started my acting career, and I was in a play with Judith where she was main female lead, and I was a little bitty character, and we hit it off, and the next year, I guess it was, Judith asked me if I would like to audition for her play, which she'd put together not too long before that. And I'm like, yes, I would love to. And then when I read it, I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the words. I used to teach high school English, and I'm like, this is good stuff.
Good stuff.
And and I had been wanting to act in Shakespeare because I love Shakespeare. But I've said this is better in a sense. I mean, there are some moments in Judith's poetry that
better than Shakespeare.
well,
very good.
No, it's not. Okay, it's not 38
I
plays.
got it.
But there are sublime moments in Judith's poetry.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I have been lucky enough to see one of the first productions at the Jacob Sears Library, and if you don't know what's coming at you, it's an amazing surprise. It's so moving and different, and I think we're jumping ahead, but why don't you describe how the play is produced? Because we had this conversation earlier when someone hears about poetry and maybe a poetry reading and a poem play, and is this going to be boring?
Right, exactly. Yeah, no. what happened was I first put together a chapbook called A Woman's Heart, and it was thanks to Barry Hellman, who had me be one of the featured readers for Poetry Month back in 2014. And my husband-to-be at the time suggested that I put together a book so that I had it for that evening to, to sell. And so I had been really thinking about putting a book together for quite a while. So I self-published my first chapbook, which is A Woman's Heart. And it has 23 poems in it. And then, and that was doing very well. I mean, I was selling it at readings and things like that. Then the Arts Foundation of Cape Cod, a year ago, asked artists on the Cape to put together something for an art spring festival. And I had been thinking for a long time about the fact that my poems are sort of like vignettes. And because I've acted, because I've directed, I could see staging my poems. And I thought, this is my challenge. I'm going to do this now. And it was supposed to be back for April, May of this past spring. So I set about last February taking all of my poems, spreading them out on the dining room table, and looking at how they could, go into a natural kind of carrying through my life, sort of. And so I put it together. I had a couple of readings at my house, and it seemed like people really liked it a lot. And I had auditions, and thankfully Rod showed up, and Cindy Harrington and Lee Roscoe are the other two people. I was not going to be in the play because I wrote it and I directed it, but it turned out that it seemed very apropos that I should be in it. So I ended up being in my own play, and that's kind of in a nutshell how it came about.
It came about, and you had I think 30 poems in the book and 60 poems in the play.
Yeah, it's like 23
and you have described
60.
the way the characters are, who the characters are.
Well, all of the characters are me. There are, however, I took the poems, and I sometimes divided them up so that different people could be speaking them. I have a couple of poems that are from a man's point of view, which I, gave to Rod. But I also took a couple of poems that are my perspective and gave them to him, and it was very interesting to hear it from a man's point of view. So it goes through kind of a progression of my life. It first starts out with a high school reunion, and I actually, the very poem that starts off the play is something that I did read at my high school reunion, the big one.
Why don't you do a couple of lines from the first poem?
Oh my gosh! No, I'd probably have to look at it.
Well,
it's because it's all four of us do that one.
Okay, so there are 4 characters.
Yeah, and it's divided up. It's about remembering, and it works kind of backwards in progression. We talk about, how we've married, had children, been divorced, had a house, graduated from college. I mean, it kind of goes backwards in progression. And it's very nice to hear the 4 of us do it. But
well, one is the older woman, and one is the younger woman, and one is the middle-aged
right,
woman.
it sort of goes in that. Yeah,
in
I
that.
play the youngest one.
You're the youngest one.
I'm the girl, and we do have a piece that we're going to perform that is me as an adolescent.
Oh, good.
And then
good.
it goes into a marriage, and then we're going to go to Rod.
Rod, what are your characters? What are your characters?
I play, very luckily, 3 ages of men: old man, middle-aged man, and younger man. And as the older man pretty much bookends the play. I come on at the beginning, I don't even say anything. I just hobble on, and I come back again at the end and hobble on and hobble off. but it presents. But I'm reacted to by the women in the play. They respond to me being there and remember things for me. So I'm, responding to what they're saying, and I love that part. But then I talk primarily totally in the young man's voice and the middle-aged man's voice, and it's great. I get to, there are so many different perspectives. That's what so many people have said, that you're hearing things from different points of view on big issues in people's lives.
Right.
And I think you mentioning that Judith keeps talking about this as her life, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is not only your life, as good poet does. It's very universal. I don't think there's a woman, at least certainly the women who grew up in the 60s and went through certain things, that doesn't feel very similar to similar emotions, similar memories, the ways of being with men, the ways of being with friends.
I know, it's been amazing. So many women have come up to me and said that it was exactly what happened to them, or, it really touched them. And people in different periods of their lives, widows, divorced women, married women, single women, and then men too. I like to say, because it's true, men have come and wept on my shoulder at the end of the play, saying that they learned so much. That they learned about things that their wives might have been feeling, or their mothers, or and how they need to be. It's been so touching and so rewarding. I had no idea.
You really didn't know this.
I didn't know it. I think
I was there the first time you performed it, and I saw the people come to you, and I saw after it was over, and I saw your reaction, and it really was quite moving to see Judith. I don't know if you were aware of what was going on with the audience coming up to her after it was over. I know myself, I sat there and I thought, wowie, she really hit that one. And I don't remember what it was, but I'm sure it was more than once, where I was more or less blown away by the fact that you put your finger on something that I hadn't thought that other people might have experienced. But on a lighter note, I mean, there are things like you have a whole sequence of scents that it goes through. It's in the 60s.
Oh, Carry Me Back.
Carry Me Back.
Yeah.
And it starts with is it the Ginette or the White Shoulders where it starts? I'll find
the cigar,
it.
The scent of cigars.
Scent of cigars.
Yeah.
And they were just so evocative of the time and
how we each have certain scents that remind us of things in our past, a certain perfume, or cigarette smoke, or whiskey, things like that. So that's what that is all about, how it reminds you of things in your life.
And it just, the fact is that's what we did wear in those days, white shoulders.
Ginette, yes. My mother was Emerald.
And we all tried drinking scotch and couldn't even bear to think about it after certain times.
Yes.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
I think it's important to say that it doesn't feel like it's a poetry reading it's not a reading. It's definitely a play. There's movement, there's interaction between the characters. It flows like a play, so that people who don't even know that this is poetry may not even realize it. They've said they love the words, but they saw it as a play. And that makes me so happy that it works that way too.
Well, it works very nicely the way you have it staged. You had a very small set where I saw it, and the three women come in and out. Sometimes they're all on the stage together, sometimes they leave, they come back, the man comes in, the props are subtly changed. It's very
Yeah.
Very good. Kudos to you.
Thank you
Kudos.
so much.
I think we're at a point where we should listen to some of this
Oh,
play.
okay.
We have a few scenes.
All right.
Would you like to introduce
Yeah,
them?
so the first one that we're going to do is me as a 16-year-old girl, and my thoughts about being down the shore. I grew up in New Jersey, and so down the shore is like a big part of anybody who lives in New Jersey. On Long Beach Island is where we vacationed. And so that's going to be the first one. Then we're going to go into a little part about getting married. And then Rod is going to do the one poem in particular that I wrote in the voice of a man, returning from the war. So we're just going to go ahead and do that.
And isn't that the one that if you don't mind my mentioning, that was it a veterans organization that gave you a prize or something for how?
Yes. The Veterans for Peace gave me an award for the poem that he's going to do at the end of this. So
That is
okay.
interesting.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that and what's happening next with the play as
Okay,
well.
Thanks. All right. Guys with their slick DAs took me for a ride in their souped-up Chevrolets, trailing cigarette smoke out the sides of their mouths, so cool to this sophomore straight from Catholic school. Blowing smoke rings to impress me in my homemade cotton sundress. Speeding down the main drag, driving with their knees, prompting prayers under my breath, 100 dear Jesus, please protect me. And the petting I denied, though they tried and tried. I'd always get my monthly friend early, inexplicably. Was it God's way of protecting me and my virginity? On the strip on summer holiday between the ocean and the bay, I yearned for something more in my teen years down the shore, though I didn't know just what it was or what I hungered for. In my naive virgin 16-year-old skin, somehow I knew it was a sin.
Marry me. Oh, marry me. Let us walk upon the dunes. Marry me. Oh, marry me. Sing with me some bonny tunes. Kiss me and hug me and roll me in the hay. Let us swing across the clouds and come what may.
Let's dream and hold hands and speak our silken cobweb lines on golden dunes where the wind erases traces of our conversation. Give me music, grow a perfect rose, read with me in bed, write in tender prose, talk with me till morning, feed me toast and tea. These are all the gifts I need as long as you love me.
Driving east on 66. Skies are darkening. Steady humming of the wheels whistles to the promise of the road. Golden arrows of the sun work the words into my song. I'm going home. Radio sings Amazing Grace. Peaceful message from above. The weary place that holds my heart is bringing love. An empty cot that was my bed, gun gone from my hands. No fiery bombs around my head, explosion sounds on distant lands. God's here in every tree I pass, strip malls, and the blades of grass. He was there too in boarded homes, with metal shards and broken glass. How many houses in this world could be the one where I turn in? But on I drive with gift of life for family, the kids, my wife, and finally to the doorstep of the place I live.
Nice job.
Thank you so much. I am so happy to have heard these things again. Oh my Lord, 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 Lord. Wonderful. Thank you both so much. Hearing that reminds me that you are being asked to perform this a number of times. You've performed it 3 times
We've done
already.
it 3 times, twice in Dennis, once at the Jacob Sears Memorial Library, once at the Cape Cod Museum of Art, and then for the Women's International Playwrights Festival in Provincetown last September. We're going to be doing it August 26th at 4 o'clock at the Cultural Center in South Yarmouth. Thankfully, that'll be a really nice opportunity. It's just going to be one performance, and it's a Sunday afternoon in the summer, but hopefully people will come, and we're excited about that. And then we expect to be at the Cultural Center in Cotuit next year.
The Cotuit Center for the Arts.
Yes, the Cotuit Center for the Arts, in, I think September of 2019. Of course, we'll be doing publicity about that. And then we may be doing it in New York this September. It's quite possible. A school where Rod taught has invited us to come there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so we're open to do it other places as well, and they might be coming up, but those are the definite, August 26th is the definite one right now. Yeah.
Cultural Center of Cape Cod.
Yes, yes.
Well, if they want to read your poetry, you have this available.
Yes, I
This is
do.
not the whole play.
Right. It's 23 poems in here. Many of them are in the play, not all of them. The play has a lot more. And so anyway, they could contact me through Judith Partelow at gmail.com if they want to get a copy.
You have a website.
Yes,
also,
I have
yeah.
judithpartelow.com as a website.
Okay.
But also, I'm doing a reading April 12th at the Wellfleet Library with 4 other poets, and there are some musicians. Barry Hellman does his Cape Cod poetry event it's for National Poetry Month. And so April 12th, I'll be selling my book, reading it, and as will the other poets that are going to be there.
I hope people are taking notes. April 12th at the Wellfleet Library. April is
6:30 to 8:30
Poetry
it'll be.
Month, and
Yeah.
that's a great opportunity. Speaking of poetry, nice segue into what you're doing at the Academy for Lifelong Learning.
Yes.
With Judith's poem.
Absolutely.
Talk about that a
I had
minute.
the opportunity, Lou Taylor, who runs I Can't Live Without Books, we had started chatting, and he said, why don't you teach a course there? And the first thing I thought of was had loved Judith's poems from the beginning, and I'm like, yes, I would love to teach this. So I put in my application, et cetera, and we're now we're going into our 5th week out of 6 weeks, and there are 10 women in the class. We just had one man just join us this past week, and they love it. I mean, that's the feedback I'm getting from them, and they're so, they jump into the poems and say, why is she doing this? And they're very much looking forward to Judith coming in the last class. They've got a ton of questions for her. But they're just, we had read the play, I didn't read it, but they read it, took turns in our 2nd class.
Nice.
And I was watching them, and they were, there were smiles coming on their faces at some of the points, and there was, they were responding to it all, and they were so into it. I mean, I kind of, contrast it with the kids in high school who aren't always necessarily into what they're reading, but, and they all want to come see the play, basically, so.
Well, there's the lines that just grab you. I mean, I can see why a group of people would like just talking about it. I mean, for example, I just love this. So the very opening line, I used to write when the lump in my throat hurt so much it splattered ink all over the paper. Now, that's it gets you in the gut for one thing, and then you think, what is this? How does this work? I don't know, why did she think of that? And why did she use that image for?
And the women in the class zeroed in on that, the verb splattered actually, and said,
Yeah.
why this? What does it suggest to you? And they were like, oh, it's sort of like a. At one point, one of them said, it's almost like vomiting up this, your feelings at some point. It's almost a violent sort of expression, finally, of this woman, telling her story.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. In fact, I have this one marked too, and this is the young man saying, "I wish I could take your sweetness." Can you read that one, where the green flag is? Because I think it's a nice.
Oh yes.
A nice one too that I just thought, I love it.
And Judith came up with the idea of me playing just a snippet from the song "Lilac Wine," which I think works very well. I wish I could take your sweetness, add it to lilac wine, bottle it, cork it, and save it for the times I need something magnificent to appease my longing for some moment of you. But it would be gone too soon, for with each glass I'd pour, I'd take just one more sip and be worse than I am without you even now. The empty bottle leaving me in withdrawal and no hope for a cure.
Thank you so much. Sure. Do you do that for the class, the people in the class?
I chose not to read. I'm getting a kick out of hearing them read. I hear things differently when they're reading the lines, and they did ask me to do one piece last time when we came up to it. And so I forced myself to go ahead and do it.
Well, thank you for coming. We are out of time. It's just been delightful.
Thank you so much.
I'm so happy to know you both and to have had the experience of seeing your play, and I wish you all the best.
Thank
and,
you.
It should go far. Thank you so
really
much.
helps.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for listening, and take notes and go to the next performance. I hope you have many very successful performances with Cape Cod
Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
elsewhere.